I'm Lee from Frank Accounting, and joining me in Christchurch, I've got on the line on the video here Amanda Douglas from Wynn Williams. Amanda leads all the employment and health and safety practice for Wynn Williams.
If you're uncertain about the future outlook for your business but can't afford to continue paying salaries, do you recommend making staff redundant or temporarily suspend their services? So I have indicated a little bit about this already. Yes, I do. And I think the question is probably which of those, redundancy or suspension, would we suggest? Look, there's a really good, a much better argument for suspending services. I think a lot of people are talking to us about the value of these people to their organisation, but they just don't have the cash to pay them over this period, understandably, if there's no income coming in. So suspension is a really good solution. It's not as severe as termination. There will be situations where termination is needed. And if that's the case, then I think employers should move ahead and do that. That's not going to be something they take lightly, of course. The benefit in the suspension means that you've got your staff there when you return, you've got them on tap. It's unlikely that people are going to be getting alternative employment in this environment, so they will appreciate the fact that they can come back to their job at some point. And the other thing to think about too is that once the lockdown is at an end, it may be that many employers cannot go back to full capacity immediately, so you may want a staged return of staff to work. So when we're doing these processes, we're thinking about all of those things and making sure that we are providing for all these various scenarios and this flexibility into these documents now, so we don't have to keep consulting every week or 2 minutes about this, but also so that so that you can cover a variety of scenarios and have some flexibility, because I think that's what's really been demonstrated in the last week, is that things change so rapidly and you need to be able to move quickly. Another question: what is your advice on the minimum a business needs to do to run a process for suspending or making staff redundant? So we are running quite truncated and accelerated processes at the moment. I think that is justified. So our legal test is what a reasonable employer could have done. And I think given the situation, the fact of consulting and putting something in writing in the very short periods that we have available to us is reasonable, or maybe more than reasonable. So if you do that, but I don't think that there's any requirement that we take a week to receive feedback, for example. It's just not that type of environment. So a process I recommend is in writing. The biggest thing we find is that if you try to do a consultative process without putting it in writing, it just opens you up to employees saying you didn't do it or you said it differently. If it's in a letter, then it's very clear what you said. It's also very important that those processes are not phrased as or approached in a predetermined way, so you need to still genuinely be considering what the employees have to say. So something like a letter or another document setting out the reasons and the proposal, and in the most important part that the employees are interested in is what's going to happen around payment for them over this period, as a proposal being put to staff. And we're doing very short timeframes for feedback on that, of 1 or 2 days, something like that, to enable employers to move quickly. Another question: with COVID, we've had to shut down our business and I need to drop all of my staff's pay down to 80% to get through. What documentation do we need to provide? Is there a standard letter we could provide? Probably my answer to the last question is answered that. So yeah, so just following that process that I've just talked about.